Welcome to Typecasting, where we're typing our favorite fictional characters on the Enneagram and taking on pop culture by the numbers.
Welcome back to McKinley High, everyone. Good old Lima, Ohio.
Woo. Oh my goodness. I feel like they pronounce it wrong, and isn't it so like Midwestern to pick names of like countries, real cities and countries around the world, and like pronounce things wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes,
do you know,
like Lebanon?
Lebanon, that's in Indiana, and like Palestine. What is the one that's supposed to be Palestine?
New Palestine?
Do they say
do they call it
Palestine?
New Palestine sometimes? Yeah.
Palestine, yeah. And they'll like correct you and you're like, you're the wrong one. Like this, it's so Midwest.
Hear me out though. Utah is just straight up the West. It's the Southwest. And there is straight up a city spelt hurricane, and it is hurricane. Mm-hmm. And if you do not say hurricane, you are incorrect.
Literally.
It drives me up a wall.
Well, I feel like that's the Wild West, at least. Like, I don't know. There's like some reason for it. We're not just like mispronouncing real places. That's silly, though. Well, that is your host, Lucas Graydon. And I was just thinking, Lucas, you would really rock the Kurt early 2010s vibe with like the scarves, extravagant, over the top. And I don't know if you've ever tried that look, but I think you could nail it.
I am honored. I'm honored. As Kurt said, fashion has no gender. I love it. I love when he talks about his dad bought him the car when he agreed to stop wearing the like knee-length sweaters, and then it like zooms out and he's wearing one. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
And that's your co-host, Mirjana Tumatua, who I think, I'm going to return the compliment, would rock Mercedes outfits. She has just such an awesome vibe. She wears it all with confidence. I love when she even rocks the Cheerios outfit. And I think you have the same versatility as Mercedes.
That's true. I am really good at dressing well. And I think that... and
I love Kurt Sadie's podcast hosts.
Woo! Did you guys see Harry Styles and Mercedes hanging out? Not Mercedes. I meant to say Lizzo.
Lizzo. Yes.
Lizzo hanging out, and everyone was commenting about how they looked like Mercedes and Kurt. And then oh, good times, good times. Well, this is your super special co-host, Ian Allred, and I would be honored to have a Christmas duet special with him.
Aww,
that was
thank
so
you.
Sweet.
That is literally, that song when Kurt and Blaine sing together was like my favorite thing that had ever happened, like in that Christmas album. Oh, God bless.
I love that. And we are also joined by our other special guest star, Lena Knatzer, who would rock being head Cheerio. It's all she deserves.
Oh my God. Thank you. I'm going to win us nationals, you guys.
She's way too nice to be a head Cheerio in my book. Like, I don't know if you can handle it.
That's true. The Cheerios can get pretty cutthroat.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly so.
I do love to win.
Her like being inserted into that narrative of them like screaming at each other in the halls. She has a family. She's
a mother. No, I'd be Brittany in that situation, no doubt. Just like stop the violence.
I love it. I love it.
Me too. Oh my gosh. Okay. I am kicking off this iconic episode. I'm a little nervous, honestly. These characters are very precious, a little tricky, and we were talking about it off mic, but I'm pretty nervous to type these guys. How do you guys feel?
Lost.
I have an opinion about all of them, but I am prepared for my opinion to change. I don't think there's a single one that I'm like, it is this one for sure.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Last week when we met, I had all 6 of the characters. We had this week's 3 and last week's 3 typed. And I don't know, like I was so sure about these 3 this time. And then this morning I woke up and I was like, they're all wrong. I need to retype them all. So like all day today I've been like, oh, but not putting in the work I needed to. So I'm very nervous. I do have opinions about all of them, but honestly, I'm an expert on nothing. So I'm just ready to chat about these characters.
Welcome to the pod. We are all experts on nothing.
Yes, I literally feel the same way where last week I did so much research. I spent probably a good 5 hours binging the show and reading all these articles. And this week, exact opposite. I'm just kind of going with my gut. So we'll see where we land.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'll kick us off by talking about Kurt Hummel. Kurt is so sweet. I love him, actually. I have I don't know if sweet was the right word, but he is dear to me as a character. The thing about Kurt, so the first season, we kind of see him coming out and just learning who he is. And it has a very close relationship with his father. And I think it's one of the most precious things about the whole show, and how accepting he is. And then we get to see him fall in love. And we'll talk a little bit about Blaine today as well. And then come into what he's always wanted to do, go to New York, be big, be crazy, be loud. And there's so many trials along the way. I just watched Grilled Cheeses, which I was not allowed to watch as a child because it was blasphemy. And I didn't realize until I was watching, I was like, why didn't I know about Kurt's dad? But he was a central character in that. So that was a little bit of my exercise. And I did not remember the Glee Club being as sweet to him as they were. In my opinion, and so I thought he's just a good point in the Glee Club where I think he's kind of connects to everyone pretty well. So
totally.
That is Kurt, and I'm so curious. Lucas, do you feel comfortable kicking us off, or should I kick it to Ian?
I will just put my numbers out there with very little commentary, and then let everybody else kind of put their numbers out. So my first thought, I'm definitely projecting. Maybe a type 4. I think he has that experience of being an outsider. We especially see that when he does end up going to Dalton, and feeling like the rest of McKinley doesn't really have his back and just always kind of feeling on the outside of things. I think that's really key to the type 4. But I don't think I can give a reason, but there was a part of me that was maybe he's a type 1. And I don't really know why, but I think he's got some kind of edge to him that made me think of the type 1. Those are the two numbers that were bouncing around my head. What are you all where are you all coming from?
I agree that he's a 4. I get major 4 vibes from Kurt personally. I've been binging the show this week just because I don't know what happened. I literally just started a random episode in season 6 and then finished all of season 6.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
The penultimate episode of Glee is a flashback episode, and it's supposed to be the pilot from a different perspective. And Kurt has a line. He's talking to Mercedes, and he's wearing his clothes from the first season where he's got this bright blue shirt with sunglasses and then knee-high boots and a fedora, and he talks to Mercedes about how he is really respects how she's so self-confident, and she's like, well, what are you talking about? Look at how you dress. And he says,
well, I want to audition, but I'm a nobody. I don't know what song to sing. I don't know what to do with my hands when I'm singing. I don't know how to move all cool like you do because you're you, and well, I'm this, but inside I'm more.
Okay, I will help. First tip, you have an incredibly loud sense of fashion, which, respect. But I see the way that you slink around at this school. It's time for your attitude to match your outfits.
I guess I just feel safer if I let all the clothes do the talking. In a way, it lets me feel invisible.
Not anymore.
And that just felt very 4 to me. The whole not really knowing who you are, and so putting on a facade and putting on an identity so that people focus on that because you aren't sure who you actually are.
That is so interesting to me. I think he might be a 1 for a similar reason. Because one of the things that I'm seeing in him, I think and we'll talk about Blaine, but I do think he goes to self-loathing a lot and naturally. I don't think he goes to let me be different, let me stand out. I think he just is that way. And I think that's might even be his code. That's what it's supposed to fashion. This is high fashion. This is what I'm going to do. This is the rules. And I see him throughout. And I think he even places these roles on others very easily and gets up. But then I also can see, because this is the same thing. It's also kind of 4. Ian. Like I see it both ways, because I'm also like thinking of like how he thinks of family and how he thinks of Finn, and he romanticizes situations. And I even think Mercedes and his friends, and like he gets frustrated when people don't live up to where they are, which is both a 4 thing because we tend to romanticize things. And then when people don't fall into that, we might get frustrated. But also a 1 thing because it's like, okay, this is the rule. This is the role you're playing. I'm playing my role perfectly. Why aren't you doing the same thing? I don't know though. I do, but like 1's and 4, like 4 goes to 1 in growth. I would say it might not be like that, though.
Lena, what
I
do you
would
think?
say.
Oh,
I just wanted to get
you're
her
good.
like number out on the board so we know where we're at.
Correct.
I think Kurt is a 4. I think Kurt is a 4 because specifically, God, I think about the episode where like Bert is getting really close to Finn and Kurt just feels really othered, like very quickly, like feels very alone very quickly. And there's this moment where Bert is talking to him like, it's okay, I can love Finn as well. And then Kurt says something really offhand to him that's like, I get it, you just don't love me, or something like that. Or I don't remember the exact quote, but and Bert is like, well, don't say that. You know, that's not how I feel. And then Kurt goes, I don't know why I say things like that. And in this like season that we're doing right now, he is just feeling very othered and is seeking sanctuary somewhere where he can feel like he's part of something. So he's kind of searching for that kind of stuff. Feels very 4 to me. He feels things very deeply. I think it's very 4 to like experiment with your passion, but I totally think he's a 4.
I loved what Ian had to say because it reminded me, I remembered why the 1 came in. And it was to do, I think, with grilled cheeses and with what Marjana was talking about, where I was like, he has a confidence and he has like an ability to like stand his ground. Especially like in grilled cheeses when they're discussing religious diversity and his like theology and things like that. He had that like very like groundedness and like, I'm okay, like disagreeing with you, that for me, I was like, oh, maybe he is a 1. And it was that confidence. And then I love that you pointed out that quote from the end of season 6 where he says like, I'm not confident, I'm like distracting people. Like, I think that's a really good example of the difference there. Because as you said that, I was like, oh, that's what made me think the 1. But I think that him using that to like give people something else to focus on and kind of distract from himself or what he sees as him lacking or being different from others, like I think that's a really good distinction between the 1 and the 4.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little like, I realized he's definitely a 4 when Lena, you were just talking about it, and I was like I was feeling red. I was like, she's calling me out right now because I'm
That's what I
I'm
felt
like,
about Quinn last week being a 3. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel red.
yeah, like, okay, yeah. Then we're talking about Kurt. Yeah, okay, I kind of agree now. I do see that, like, I do think I think he has the ability to access the 1. And I think, like, there are so many dramas and drama queens in Glee Club. And so I think, like, sometimes the writers just, like, choose who's going to be the, like, the good one that episode and not be like holier than thou or is holier than thou. And I think like, so sometimes I think he like teeter-totters between like way over the top and like crazy. And then like, I'm just gonna, be a little more chill, poised. I'm a one, and I can see him like accessing the 1 only when it's like, works well for him. But I can totally see that. I wonder what his wing is.
A 3, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably a 3.
Is he smart?
I think he's smart, but I just get much more, like he's very driven like 3s are, and he is very much like he loves validation, which is a very 3 thing.
Yes, that's so true.
Yeah,
I wish I knew him.
I think ambition is like definitely a part of him that as a 4-wing 5, I like struggle with accessing any ambition. And I think that he's not afraid to like to go for the diva off in season 1 against Rachel and things like that. Like,
yeah,
that's exactly what I was thinking of. But then he like, and then that's because he's a 4 because he throws it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is a good episode. I need to rewatch
I also
that one.
I also felt called out, first of all, when Lena was talking about him like blowing, and he knows that he's blowing what his dad is saying out of proportion. And when I watched that, I was like, ooh, that is me. But also, I think that shows, and I don't know why I talk about this every time we talk about a 4, but I do think that Kurt is a good example of getting possessive when he's not in a healthy place, and like taking on the negative side of the 2 in stress. Like, I think that he definitely like gets possessive in his relationships when he's not doing well.
That's such a good point.
I love
Absolutely.
the 4 for him.
Yeah, he's definitely doing. That's crazy. Now I'm like, whoa, he's absolutely a 4. Because like exactly what you were saying. Like... I know, because him being uncomfortable with Finn and Bert getting close.
Yeah,
that is like iconic for going to their 3. I didn't even think of that. Good point, Lucas. Good job, team. 4 with 3.
Wow, I love agreeing.
Oh gosh, who is next?
Okay, this next character. I'm going to say 2 very contradictory statements, I think. Okay. We are about to talk about Blaine Anderson. And on the one hand, this character is so important to me as a person and like my development as a young kid. But also, as I started like studying for this episode, I was like, I don't know that I could tell you a single thing about Blaine.
Literally.
I'm like, he matters so much to me, but who is he? Like,
this is why I watched so much Glee this week, is because I was like, I've seen this whole show and a lot of episodes multiple times. I couldn't tell you anything about Blaine besides the fact that he's Kurt's boyfriend, which frankly is a fault and that he sings a lot. I think it's a fault of the writers that they were just like, they were like, oh, Darren Criss is so dreamy and he has a beautiful voice and we want Kurt to have a boyfriend. So that will just be his whole arc.
I know. I just watch so many compilations and they're all one-liners. Like there is nothing that happens to him or like character build that we get to see. It is just like, he is just here.
I feel bad for him. I feel like one of the only arcs they ever give him is cheating on Kurt. And I was like, I can't base his type on that. Like,
honestly.
He didn't want to. It wasn't supposed to happen.
I do have my strongest opinion of the episode is about Blaine's type.
I would agree. He is the one I do feel closest on. So Ian, you go first and we'll all kind of give out our numbers and then we'll talk.
Okay.
I have no idea if everyone will agree with me on this. No one might, but I do have a case just like I had last week. I think Blaine is a 1.
Huh.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
We're just going to go for our numbers, right?
Yeah, do you want to go around?
Yeah, let's all just,
Oh.
Lucas, go first.
I think he is a 2.
Oh, thank God. I think he's a 2 too.
I thought he was either a 9 or a 2, both because I feel like a 9 is I don't know. I just felt like things happen to him, not like for like,
right.
Like he's doing it for the people around him, and that's like a writing flaw. And so like I don't know if, sorry, 9s out there, you are so valid and important in your own person, but I could go with 2. And I want to hear the 1 argument though, because I do not feel strongly.
Yes.
Okay, so I was thinking 2 as well, because I was like, Blaine is just Kurt's boyfriend, and he like loves Kurt, and he's very supportive of Kurt. But then I specifically watched episodes after Kurt has graduated, because I was like, now Blaine has to be independent of Kurt, so who is Blaine by himself? And the number 1 episode that made me say 1 is there's an episode in season 5 called Puppet Master, where the Glee Club is getting mad because Blaine is so controlling, and Blaine is like, this is what we're doing for nationals. We're doing it this way. You guys need to listen to me. I have the most experience out of everyone in this room. And they all turn on him. And then Blaine has a dream sequence. And this was the line that I was like, Blaine is a 1. He is at least a wing 1 if he's like a 2 or a 9. He for sure has some 1 in him. Blaine is having a dream sequence when he's in like detention or something.
I'm sorry, Blaine Whippler. That was totally inappropriate. Please come stay with me. Sometimes I fall off the handle. Like yesterday, when I taped Dottie's buttons together, I did it for my old man. I wanted him to think I was cool.
That's really heavy, Becky. Thanks for sharing. What's going on with you, Blaine?
Well, to tell the truth, guys, I feel really, really guilty about missing Kurt's show in New York.
Why? It's a stupid cover band.
And dude, you go to New York all the time. You were just there last week.
True, but Kurt needs me.
We all need you because you are so awesome.
Yeah, you're America's gay sweetheart.
Thanks, guys. You guys are like my only real friends.
But we're not real. We're puppets.
Maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe the fact that I can only really feel like myself with friends I can totally control is keeping me from really feeling like I'm close to anyone. Maybe it's indicative of a deeper intimacy issue.
Or maybe everyone should just wise up and start doing everything you say because you are so right on all the time.
And I was like, that is the most, like, on paper definition of a one I've ever heard. That it's like,
Right.
I know how to do everything. So if you would just do it the way I do it, then things would be okay. And like a lot of the relationship trouble that Kurt and Blaine go through when Kurt moves to New York is that Blaine just wants Kurt to be all the things that Blaine wants him to be and like doesn't really give him a lot of freedom. I think I can really see the two in Blaine, but I think he reads as a 2 just because the writers hadn't figured out anything to do with his character. And then once they were forced to give him his own character, once Kurt was gone, he really leans 1.
I think that's a good argument.
Yeah.
Also, I think, like, and I was trying to look at examples of Blaine from before him and Kurt dating, because I do think we have a problem once they get into a relationship of it, like with him as a character. And for me, I was actually drawn to the really, like, it's hard to watch the Gap performance of him like serenading the guy at the Gap with all the warblers. And I think just in that episode specifically, like he is like very much in love, like in infatuation, and he's all about like the big gestures and being very romantic. And at first I thought maybe 4, because like 4s are the romantics, like they are very dramatic. But I didn't see a lot of the 4 with him. Actually, I felt like he had those big feelings and those big gestures, but it was that 2 that like can sometimes cross over into the type 4 in strength. And also when he first meets Kurt, and I think like through a lot of the beginning of their relationship, he really takes Kurt under his wing, and like he's very like caring and protective and nurturing of Kurt when he's learning to navigate Dalton and things like that in a way that not to like discount him as a 1, but I think like he's maybe not in the best place come season 5, like in Puppet Master and things like that. Yeah. But I think like when he's in Health and like he and Kurt first meet and he's like, hey, it's your first like audition for a solo. Like you're not going to get it, but like I'm going to be next to you and like sit with you in that and like comfort you. Those are some of the things where I saw the 2. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I agree. I think that makes so much sense because I actually thought for a while that they might be like 2 4s in love, which is not usually a good combo because that's just a lot of emotion a lot of the time, but anything can work. And so, but then I think the 2 is, I think you're right. Cause it's like both 4s and 2s, you know, love well and hard. It's just sometimes it's a little more emotional, sometimes it's a little more inward focused, outward focused. And I think you're totally right, Lucas. All the 4 feelings I was having were actually just 2, because the most parts I remember about Blaine also were being like over the top, being so there for Kurt, and so like just all of his numbers are so like beautiful and big, and they brought acapella to Glee, and it was so fun. And so anyway, I think you're totally right. Like I think he's a 2, and I think he is a good friend, and I think he has a strong wing 1, and I think that is a fun combo for people. Good luck.
Yeah, I just think about the moment like of Blaine coming to McKinley and like Blaine knowing that Kurt like was feeling unsafe at his school and loving him so much and wanting Kurt to feel safe and loved and cared for. And so he like makes the trek out to Lima every single day. That's like an hour and a half. It's just a huge thing to do. And he like is happy to do it because it just wants to be like there for him and love him and be helpful. Mm-hmm. I totally think he's a 2.
So 2. Good guy.
Yeah. This morning I was like, but am I just reading 2 because his only arc is like loving Kurt? But I think that's something to take at face value. I also don't think that that's like a not noble thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, like him investing himself so fully in that relationship, like I think is actually like, if you do just kind of like take it as, okay, this is the character and not like, okay, the writers didn't give him his own story, like, and just look at it as a character, like I think it can be really beautiful, even if it wasn't the original intention. I think there's a lot of Glee that like was not the original intention, but if you just like accept it, it can be beautiful.
Absolutely.
Do we know how Ryan Murphy found Darren Criss? Like, because I'm assuming he found him because
Harry
he's
Potter
obsessed
musical
with him, and he just got obsessed.
Well,
Didn't
that's a
we
good
all?
question. That's where I fell in love with Darren Criss. So I may be reading into Ryan Murphy a little bit, but I do think like little Harry Potter musical tangent, it got like super viral after it came out. And so they wrote the sequel, and it was after the sequel, I think, that Darren Criss got cast in Glee.
Okay.
But
so like he'd already done some stuff.
I do think I just learned a couple weeks ago from this really awesome podcast called Recovering Gleek that Darren Criss did audition for Finn, didn't he? So he was in the audition process from the beginning of Glee.
Have we like told the people who you guys are?
We talked about it last week. Listen to the last episode.
These are our pals. They just like Glee. Oh my god.
These random people.
We just wandered in off the street. Like, we have strong opinions about Glee.
It was just a Zoom bomb. You were just like putting in random Zoom links and you ended up.
Here we are. Everyone's like, wait, their voices just sound different and they're talking to themselves a lot.
They're disagreeing with themselves. That's so weird.
What's going on?
That is so funny. Okay, well, amazing. I just was like, he's done a lot. And I thought, in my head, so I'd only listened to your guys' podcast. I haven't watched the show in a while. As I feel like you could tell as I'm talking about stuff, I'm like, this is definitely through a 14-year-old's lens, But I felt like in my head that I was like, this is who Ryan Murphy thinks he is or would have been if he was in there. I think he like inserted himself in the narrative as Darren Criss and or as Blaine. But then as we're saying all these things, I don't think that's true because I think he thinks he's more of a Schuster.
I think he's Kurt.
I think Ryan Murphy thinks that he's Kurt. And he wrote Blaine to be his perfect boyfriend and Bert to be his perfect dad.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say.
If I could have had any dad in the world growing up and any boyfriend in the world growing up, this is who they are.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's kind of sweet.
Yeah, sweet. I was thinking sad. But
also
that's sweet
sad.
too.
That's also
a little bit of both.
I do it too, man. I'm just kidding.
I cannot wait until you guys blow up and are on Broadway, and then like you have to work with Ryan Murphy for some weird reason, and he's I have met the two most darling people, and then he just resurfaces all this smack talk.
we're just being so awkward in the corner, like, yeah, hi Ryan.
But hear me out. I have heard so many. As like a person who got a degree in theater, I like in school was told so many horror stories about like you're always auditioning and like really watch like what you're saying in the audition building because you don't know who can hear you and you don't know like if it's actually like someone in the room is actually going to be behind the table and blah blah blah. That I'm so paranoid that sometimes on the podcast if we mention any real life celebrity, I'm like, this is the biggest long shot, but I really hope I never like rub elbows with this person someday.
But I do.
That's one of the many reasons that we try to not talk about the actors' personal lives on the podcast. One, because like it's their business, it's their lives. And two, because like if long shot we ever ran into them, I would love to be able to say, like, I've never just talked about your private affairs to a bunch of strangers.
You just like delete the episodes. Yeah.
File not found. That's so weird.
Like, wait, that's so funny.
That's so weird that season 3 episode 9 isn't there anymore. I don't want to know anything about that. I don't know.
Because everyone does make a little side appearance in Glee. And it's a weird thing.
For real.
Right.
That is true.
Oh my gosh. I'm kind of nervous to talk about this Nick's character. I have no idea. And good thing I'm introducing. I'll go last. All right, everyone. So our last character is Mercedes. Oh my goodness. Mercedes Jones. I don't think I knew she had a last name. I really had to look for the script on that one. Mercedes is, I think, honestly, a complex character because I feel like from episode to episode, she is a new person.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate her. I saw myself a little bit in her, but we're both Black. I think that's like where it starts and stops. We'll see. Maybe we'll talk more about her and I'll think of something different. But I feel like she is such a good, I don't know if I want to say a good friend, but to the friend, she's a friend. Like, she is thick and thin. She's going through it. And like, even people she's enemies with, if she like secretly likes you, you'll find out when the going gets tough. And we kind of, her journey is a little all over the place. Like, she's either like really in an episode or really not. I realized as I was trying to rewatch to find her content. And I like her. Honestly, if anyone else wants to talk about her, go ahead. I feel like I didn't give much to say.
I was just as you were introducing her, I feel like I just changed my mind again. I've gone very much like back and forth on her. Like I said, with especially Kurt and Mercedes, I was like, I don't know. I think my original thought was the type 2. And I think just how readily she like opens her home for Quinn in season 1, and then she is there for Kurt. And I think like she did not have to put him on blast in front of the whole church when his dad was in a coma, but she was very sweet.
Seriously, can you imagine going to someone else's church and they get up in front of the congregation and they're like, now, Lucas, I know you don't believe in God. And you're like, I am just trying to watch.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
but it was a sweet gesture. It was well intentioned. And
yes. That is a little more acceptable. Like, I don't think she should have told everyone that he doesn't believe in God.
She did it out of love.
She did do it out of love. But I was going to say, we did a stint, at a Black church growing up for a long, and that was very the mood. Like, you knew who was brand new. It was their first time. You go on stage. Everyone's praying over you. Everyone buys you ice cream after.
Aww.
It's a blast. Like, I changed my hairstyle a couple times so people would think I was new because I love attention. And so I don't know how it went for them,
but so the 2 was kind of where I started. I think she, like you said, she is a really good friend. Then she is just such a diva, and she's so confident, and she is so like comfortable in her own skin. I love, speaking of her rocking the Cheerios outfit.
Ladies, what we have here is a grade A dilemma. Mercedes, your vocal cords have had more fantastic runs than a Kenyan track team. But that look simply will not do. At first, I thought it was a subtle homage to yours truly, but now I fear it's some sort of ironic comment.
Miss Sylvester, I'm just not comfortable in those Cheerio skirts. They don't fit me right.
Mercedes, you shouldn't feel embarrassed about your body.
Embarrassed? No, I'm worried about showing too much skin and causing a sex riot.
How do you two not have a show on Bravo?
She knows herself and like loves herself so much that I was like, maybe she's a 3. Like, I think she has like that confidence of the achiever. However, as you were introducing her, I was like, no, I think I'm going to go back to the 2. I think that's where I'm going to like put my opening bit out, because I was also thinking about how when Kurt and Blaine meet each other and start to get closer, she feels really unmoored and really lost when she feels like she's losing her best friend. And I think that she does really define herself by those relationships and like by how much her friends need her. And maybe that's why, maybe I can read into why Quinn Sadie's is just dropped in season 2, because maybe once Quinn kind of like gets back on her feet and she feels like Quinn doesn't need her anymore, she like stops seeing the value in that relationship. And maybe that's like where her type 2 is coming in. I don't know. I'm just saying I'm starting on the 2, but I was drawn to the 3. That's where we're starting.
Okay. You speaking of the 2, actually, you did a good job. I feel very comfortable with the 2, but I'll just make a case for the 3 just because I was also on the 3 and I think a case can be made. As you said, like Mercedes is very ambitious. She's a diva, et cetera, et cetera. I've noticed like the differences. No, that's off the record. It's gonna bring up what type Rachel is again, which is a conversation we already had and don't need to have again.
You could totally.
You can mention that.
Totally. Oh, yeah, please do.
Okay, well, in that case, so I think Rachel's a 1. Everyone's free to disagree and say she's a 3. I think she's a 1. Rachel and Mercedes are constantly clashing, and when they clash and one of them loses, which frankly is mostly Mercedes because the writers of the show were like obsessed with Lea Michele. But when one of them loses, I have noticed that usually Rachel will take that loss and like throw it in the fire to fuel her to work harder. Mercedes feels that loss very personally. Like there is in season 3, Mercedes talks to her boyfriend and just says straight up like, she does a Dreamgirls analogy and is like, I'm the Effie of the group. No one likes me. And he has to be like, no, you're not. You're the Beyonce of the group. And then she, in season 3, after graduation, she's like, I can't get into any of these performing arts schools. I'm just gonna, I don't know, just go to whatever college and do something else. And then Sam has to be like, no, you should be a recording artist. And then like, once again, in the flashback episode, she and Rachel audition for the solo. Rachel gets it. And Mercedes like really loses her sense of self-worth. And there's a really beautiful scene of her crying at her church just about like, I don't understand. Like, I think I'm just as talented as her, but like, I just feel like no one ever sees it. And she has a lovely conversation with her pastor, but it just feels like Mercedes constantly needs other people to validate that she is talented enough and to tell her that she can do it. Otherwise she feels very worthless and will kind of like drop it semi-quickly.
That's interesting because I do think some of that could also point to the 2.
I know.
Yeah.
In that, like, if she like loses her ambition so quickly that's not like her driving force, but like it's the way that other people see her and like the way that she depends on other people to tell her who she is. But that is also a very like 3 thing too. So I don't know. Lena, what do you think as our resident 3 on the pod?
My initial thought that was that Mercedes was a 3. I think she is a person who has really big hopes and dreams and sometimes has a tough time focusing them. And I totally identify with that. But this morning, like I told you guys, I woke up and I was like, I have to change all these. So I have a case for the 6.
Ooh.
I know. The scandal. Hear me out. I can be talked down from anything because I came up with this like today. So I was reading about the 6 and they said something and I'll just read you the quote. It says, not all 6s go along with the status quo. Their beliefs may be rebellious and anti-authoritarian, even revolutionary. And to me, I thought that, and I thought the Tot revolution. Like, she is a person who, like, you know, got so angry with Coach Sylvester that she shoved Tots up her car. And I think that Mercedes is also a person who a lot of her storylines revolve around other people, which you know, we don't love that. But like, she's an incredible friend. Like the way that she is just so loyal to the group. And she's often, and this is what makes me think that she's not a 3 sometimes. she is willing to do what's good for the group. Like,
that's true.
Like, she knows that she's a great singer. She loves to sing. She thinks she's awesome, but she knows that like Rachel will, she knows, quote unquote, she thinks that Rachel will be the one to get them the win. And she loves her group so much that I think she's willing to take a back seat sometimes. So yeah, that's my case for the 6. I can be talked down from anything, but that's my case. I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of like the 6. I like that she's loyal. I like that she's like, that's kind of it. Why does she sing "Bust the Windows Out Your Car" again?
Because she has a crush on Kurt, and then Kurt says that he's in love with someone else. And then she picks up a rock and then busts his windows.
Oh, that girl. That's so
I know,
fun.
sweetheart.
You busted my windows. Oh yeah? Well, you busted my heart.
You busted my heart.
I like the idea. I don't like that I think you're right. I think she's not a 3. One of the reasons when I realized I was in a 3, Lucas and I were talking about this. Like, we all have main character syndrome. And I was like, honestly, I think for a long time, I struggled with like fairy godmother syndrome. So I was like, my friends are the main characters. I come in and I'm funny and I spruce it up, and then they get to have their big moment. And I like won't let myself have my big moment. And I think Mercedes does that a little bit too.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of just like the black best friend thing they do in media, you know? And so like, and I might have seen that my whole life, and that's where I got that from. But I think that like, that's why she's not a 3, because I think a 3 wouldn't let Rachel Berry be Rachel Berry. I think they would have put a lot more of a fight up. And so I think in that way, I honestly even thought of a 4 for a little bit, but I was like, I'm projecting because I thought of her as myself growing up. But I think I can see the 2, but I'm really not against the 6. I'd have to hear. I don't even think she has a wing 3. I think you can be a confident person without like. I don't know. I don't really. That's the only thing I'm seeing of the 3, even after all this discussion. So I'd love to hear more. But I think I'm playing the role of convince me rather than I'm going to try to convince you.
I'm actually really interested in what Lena had to say about the 6. I know we've talked a little bit about it before. I think all the way back in season 1 about the idea of 6s. 6 is a type that in certain like traditions or ideas around the Enneagram can present in 2 very different ways, as either phobic or counterphobic. And basically like, because 6s a lot of times like at the root of their identity is fear, and phobic 6s are like, they follow their fear. They're usually kind of very anxious, very worried. And they work kind of against that. Whereas like the counterphobic 6 rebels against their fear and like pushes back against it. And they are that kind of, I think like what Lena was talking about, that rebellious like spirit where she still has those really close relationships and that network of friends and like throughout. And I think she finds a lot of security in the church, like as that like larger sense of identity and like something that's larger than herself. But I love the Tots revolution. It's kind of like looking at that. I think, and I can also see the types or the wing 7. When you said 6, I was immediately like, oh, she would be such a wing 7. Like,
yeah,
I see that very clearly in a way that where Mirjana too, I know you were a little like, I don't know about the wing 3. So I do see the 6 wing 7. What do you guys think?
I do too. I feel that. I think a lot of these things that we're talking about that seem out of character are like so 7 to do. Like you're like, oh, I'm like, and I think that like is what makes her go over the edge and like bust out windows, because that's not like indicative of her character for like the rest of the season, like the series. And in the same way, I think, yeah, I think that like she's 7, and I don't think she's like going on any crazy adventures. I think she's just doing things that are like out of her realm every once in a while. And I like that. I could get the 6 wing 7. I don't know if it's just because it's outside of the box, but I like it.
Oh my gosh. This was, I feel like, a lot less combative. I don't know if it's because we all, like, none of us, I think, were super confident on this one. Whereas, like, last week, we all had very strong, like, stances.
I came Knives Out last week. I was like, this is what I think, and I will kill everyone. A very good movie. That is true.
I thought, Lucas, good film.
I know, literally. I was like, I love Rian Johnson.
Oh,
well, my gosh.
Thank you guys so much for joining. Where can people find your podcast? Where can they locate you on the internet?
We do have a podcast called Recovering Gleek, a Glee podcast. You can find it anywhere, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, like essentially anywhere you get podcasts, where we are rewatching Glee. We have an episode of the podcast for every episode of Glee. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Recovering Gleek _podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Recovering Gleek.
And Lucas and Marjana, too, even special guest star on a podcast of ours. We do A Very Glee Christmas together. It's so fun.
So much fun. Woo! Thank you guys so much. We have one more episode in the crazy halls of McKinley High School. And I'm super excited for next week. Who are we talking about?
Oh, me? I can talk about what we're talking about. We're talking about the Cheerios. We're talking about Sue. We're talking about Brittany. We're talking about Santana.
I'm so excited.
I love that we kind of have like the three, I think like the trifecta of like Glee couples. You've got like the Finchel, the Klaine, and the Britannia.
And supporting characters.
Oh, I love that. And some randos.
Do not call Sue a rando.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Guys, thanks so much for this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. This was fun.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Or we'll hear you next week.
Yeah.
That was so cheesy. XOXO.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Typecasting. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at TypecastingPod, where you can vote in our weekly polls. Leave a review and be sure to join us next week when we take on more pop culture by the numbers.